At the inheritance meeting, my brother confidently declared, "Mom and Dad are giving all 8 rental houses in Florida to me. Tegan, too bad you're getting nothing." Everyone cheered. I just smiled and said, "Dad, you really don't know, do you?" He froze, as if his heart dropped. My brother screamed, and I watched as the entire room went from a celebration of my brother's future wealth to absolute stunned silence. It was the moment I had been planning for over 2 years, the moment I knew I had won a game my family didn't even realize they were playing. The look on my father's face, a mixture of confusion, dawning horror, and a crushing sense of personal failure, is something I will never forget. I walked into that meeting knowing I would be officially disinherited, that I would be publicly humiliated, and I walked out holding a piece of paper that made me the sole owner of something far more valuable than all 8 of those Florida houses combined. The question I'm left with even now is, was I wrong to let them believe I was the failure for so long, just to watch their smug arrogance shatter in a single, devastating moment? My parents, David and Carol, and my older brother, Marcus, always operated as a united front, a kind of self-congratulatory cult of success. From the time I was a child, I was the black sheep, the sensitive one, the artist, dreamer, all synonyms for failure in their vocabulary. Marcus, on the other hand, was their golden boy. He went to a good business school, married a woman from a good family, wealthy and socially connected, and joined my father's small but lucrative real estate investment firm straight out of college. He was everything they wanted, ruthless, transactional, and obsessed with money and status. I took a different path. I went to a state school, majored in architecture, and after graduation, I chose to work for a nonprofit organization that focused on sustainable, low-income housing development in underserved areas. This decision, to them, was the ultimate betrayal of the family legacy. The conversations around the dinner table weren't subtle. They were constant, grinding critiques of my life choices. "When are you going to stop playing charity and get a real job, Tegan?" My father would ask, not as a question, but as a judgment. "Marcus is bringing in 6 figures and setting himself up for the inheritance. You're just wasting your education." The inheritance itself was built on 8 rental homes my father and mother had bought years ago, all in prime locations near Orlando, Florida. They were the crown jewel of their portfolio, generating a massive, reliable income stream. It was always understood that this portfolio was the main asset to be divided. As the years went by, Marcus took on more and more responsibility for managing them. He loved it. He would brag incessantly about his management style, his shrewd tenant selection, and the appreciation in value. I would just nod and smile, offering a non-committal, "That's nice, Marcus," which only seemed to fuel his need to prove his superiority. The snubs weren't just about my career. They were woven into the fabric of our relationship. Christmas gifts were always extravagant for Marcus and a token gift card for me. Family vacations were planned around Marcus's schedule and preferences. My parents had made their preference clear. Marcus was the heir, and I was the afterthought, perhaps useful for a minor, cash-based bequest if I was lucky. I stopped correcting them. I let their perception of me solidify into the image of, meaning slightly misguided artist sibling who would never amount to anything. The emotional distance this created was profound, but it also granted me a kind of freedom. The freedom to move in the background without suspicion. About 5 years ago, my father began talking about formally structuring the transfer of the Florida properties to Marcus. He was getting older, and the estate planning was becoming more urgent. Marcus, of course, was ecstatic. I remember a family dinner where he actually toasted himself, saying, "To the future of the family wealth. Don't worry, Tegan, I'll hire a good financial advisor for you once I take over the portfolio. Maybe you can finally learn to budget." My parents laughed. I didn't. I just took a sip of my wine and said, "That's very generous of you, Marcus." It was at that point that I decided 2 things. First, I would stop fighting their narrative. I would accept the role of the disinherited failure. Second, I would use that invisibility to work on a project of my own, one they would never see coming. I poured every ounce of my effort, my architectural expertise, and my investment knowledge, which I had quietly been cultivating for years, into something completely separate from their world. I found a complex, highly undervalued piece of land outside of a booming metropolitan area, secured private, low-interest funding through my nonprofit connections, and began the intricate process of developing a modern mid to high-end residential complex. It was a massive undertaking, requiring meticulous planning, local government approvals, and months of silent, grueling work. All the while, I maintained my underachiever facade. When they asked what I was working on, I'd give a vague answer about a new community garden project or a grant application. They would roll their eyes, satisfied that I was still safely occupied with my charity work. The final straw, the one that cemented my decision to execute my plan in the most dramatic way possible, was 2 years ago when my grandmother, my mother's mother, passed away. She had left me a small, private investment fund about $$150,000. It was a secret gift, a quiet acknowledgement that she saw me, even if my parents didn't. When my father found out, he went ballistic. He demanded I invest it in Marcus's next big thing, a speculative land deal he was pushing. When I politely declined, saying I had my own plans for the money, my father revoked my access to the family cabin we used for holidays, citing my unwillingness to contribute to the family's overall financial health. My mother backed him up completely. I was truly cut off then, not just financially, but emotionally. That $$150,000, however, was the final piece of seed money I needed to secure the construction loan for my project. It was the catalyst. It was their rejection that gave me the means to succeed. I went radio silent about my finances. My brother, in his arrogance, never bothered to dig. Why would he? Tegan was a non-threat. Tegan was beneath his notice. So that's the situation I was in. I had poured 5 years of my life, every cent of my savings, and every shred of my architectural and business acumen into a massive development project, all while my family celebrated my brother and openly scorned me. I knew the inheritance meeting would be a spectacle of Marcus's triumph and my public dismissal. I knew they wanted to see me squirm. I had a choice: let them humiliate me and walk away silently, or stand up for myself in a way that would fundamentally change the power dynamics of our family forever. Before I tell you what happened when my brother dropped his bombshell, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let them have their moment, or would you have pulled the trigger on the secret you'd been holding on to? The day of the inheritance meeting finally arrived. It was held in my parents' massive, opulent living room. My brother, Marcus, and his wife, Clara, were already there, preening and whispering to each other. My parents were seated like a royal couple, smug and self-satisfied. The family attorney, Mr. Thompson, looked appropriately uncomfortable. The air was thick with Marcus's barely contained glee. We sat down, and my father, without preamble, started the meeting. He delivered a flowery, utterly nauseating speech about Marcus's dedication to the family's financial future and his superior business sense. He then motioned to Mr. Thompson to read the relevant part of the new will. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a smirk plastered on his face, occasionally winking at Clara. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and read, upon the death of the grantors, David and Carol Sterling, the entirety of the Florida real estate portfolio, consisting of 8 separate rental properties, shall be transferred to Marcus Sterling, free and clear of all encumbrances. The silence was broken by Marcus's dramatic sigh of satisfaction. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson continued, a fixed sum of $50,000 shall be bequeathed to Tegan Sterling. Marcus burst out laughing. $50,000? Oh, Tegan, you can finally buy a decent car, he sneered. Clara giggled behind her hand. My parents smiled proudly at Marcus. My father then looked directly at me, his eyes full of pity and judgment. He said, I hope you understand, Tegan. Marcus is the only one capable of handling an asset of this size. It's for the best. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dripping with triumphant condescension, and declared, Mom and Dad are giving all 8 rental houses in Florida to me. Tegan, too bad. You're getting nothing. Everyone cheered. The attorney shifted uncomfortably. I felt a cold, quiet calm settle over me. I met my father's gaze, held it, and allowed a genuine, serene smile to spread across my face. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the coffee table toward my father. I said, softly, but clearly enough to cut through the congratulatory noise, "Dad, you really don't know, do you?" My father froze. His confident posture melted away as he looked down at the document. It was a recent, official filing from the city planning department. Marcus, still chuckling, squinted to see what it was. My mother was just starting to ask, "Don't know what, dear?" My father picked up the paper, his hands trembling slightly, and his eyes scanned the title and the first paragraph. The color drained from his face as he read the name of the project. The Sterling Residences, he whispered, his voice catching. The document was the final certificate of occupancy and the official zoning designation for my development. Marcus snatched the paper from his hand, his eyes rapidly devouring the details, looking for a flaw, a mistake, a typo. He found none. He looked up, his face a mask of disbelief. No, this can't be real, that land. That scrub land by the highway. You said you were doing a community garden? The paper stated the project consisted of *40 units of high-end modern townhouses with an estimated market value in the tens of millions of dollars. The final sentence, which my father had missed but Marcus caught, was the dagger. Financing was secured on a 5-year, fixed-rate, non-recourse basis. The first units are currently 100% pre-sold. Marcus screamed. It wasn't a roar of rage, but a high-pitched, almost panicked shriek, 10 times the value of the Florida properties. You lied to us. You're worth 10 times what I am now. I just shrugged, leaning back in my chair. I didn't lie, Marcus. I simply let you assume. When you asked what I was doing, I said I was developing a community project. A 40-unit residential complex is a community, isn't it? As for my own financial health, well, I decided I was tired of being a financial burden, so I fixed it myself. My mother looked utterly bewildered, then her eyes darted to my father, who was staring blankly at the wall, his own lifelong assumptions collapsing around him. The silence was heavy, broken only by Marcus's ragged breathing as he reread the document, searching for an escape clause. The attorney, Mr. Thompson, finally spoke, a flicker of admiration in his voice. "Mr. Sterling," he addressed my father, "it appears your daughter has developed a significant, professionally executed real estate portfolio that dwarfs the estate's current liquid and non-liquid assets. This changes everything. The aftermath was exactly what I had hoped for. The celebration was ruined. Marcus was inconsolable, not because he loved me, but because his foundation of superiority had crumbled. He ranted about my deception, but my father, for the first time, cut him off. He looked at me, really looked at me, and there was no pity, no scorn, only respect and a deep, burning regret. "Why didn't you tell us, Tegan?" he asked, his voice broken. I met his eyes again. "Because, Dad," I said, "every time I tried to show you what I was capable of, you and Mom just laughed and pointed to Marcus. You wanted me to fail. I stopped telling you my successes because your approval never depended on what I did only on whether it mirrored what Marcus did. I built this in the silence you forced upon me." My mother tried to save face, stammering something about how proud she was now, but the words were hollow. I simply gathered my papers, stood up, and looked at my brother, who was slumped in his chair. "Congratulations on the 8 houses, Marcus," I said, my voice calm. "They're a nice start. Maybe you'll work your way up to 40 someday." I then left the house, the sound of Marcus yelling my name echoing behind me. I haven't been back for a family dinner since, but the calls have changed. My father now calls me for business advice. My mother is suddenly interested in my creative vision, and Marcus. He is silently furious, realizing his inheritance is a small pond next to the ocean I now control. I now operate entirely on my own terms. The whole spectacle was unnecessary for my career, but it was absolutely essential for my soul. I finally got the respect I deserved. Not because I begged for it, but because I earned it and used it as a weapon against their own arrogance. The moral of the story, I suppose, is that sometimes the best way to win the game is to let your opponent think you're not even playing while you build your own empire in secret. Was it cold? Maybe, but they taught me that the only language they understood was money and power, and I finally spoke it fluently. Let me know in the comments if you think I should have been kinder, or if their humiliation was a justified consequence of their years of neglect. Like this video if you were on my side in this crazy family feud. Subscribe for more stories like this that prove the quiet ones are the ones you need to watch out for. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.